Hi, my name is Russell, and my friend Aaron and I are going to be working on a game called Blind Trust that's going to be released for free on Steam. It's a two-player game where the players work together to try and escape a zombie. The catch is that only one of them can see. So about myself, I'm a stay-at-home dad of twin girls, and I've worked previously as a user experience designer for about 4 years. Since college. Been passionate about game development for over a decade and mostly tinkering around with level design and stuff like that. But I've actively been working on it as a hobby again for about the last year. Aaron and I have been friends for over a decade, and this last May we worked together on a game jam and we made a game called Undead Delivery, and in that game we ranked 37th out of 1,000 participants, which was a really pleasant surprise for us. Aaron's going to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Aaron, and I've worked as a developer in various aspects, developing software since graduating from college. A few years ago, I decided to pursue game development more than just a hobby and see what it had to offer for me. So currently, I'm working as a developer, making multiplayer games for location-based VR arcades. I enjoy all sorts of games, mainly more so FPS and VR fast-paced games. For this Blind Trust game that Russell mentioned, I will be working more on the development side, working on the gameplay mechanics and the multiplayer subsystems, and Russell's going to be working a bit more on the design side.
Yeah, and as for the plot of the game, there's been a zombie outbreak. One player is mostly blinded and has an injured leg, and they're trapped in a small area with the zombie. The other player has managed to find a security room and can guide the blinded player using the security cameras. So this whole game is based on trust. It's kind of like a trust walk exercise, and it's all about communication as well. So that's going to be some of the key components with it. This game's a really small scope game. We're hoping to do it in a month or two. It's going to be a single level game, and the level's already built because I did that in a tutorial series called The Corridor by World of Level Design. And we're basically just going to expand that level where I already have, and I'll show that to you, into a little bit more of a circuit area. It's ready to go in terms of the actual level for a prototype. We're going to go ahead and walk you through what we've been working on the last few weeks, these first few weeks on the project. So this is what the corridor looked like originally after it was finished with the tutorial series. And this is what it looks like now. Basically, with this original corridor, these stairs led up to nowhere, and the doors here and here were just props. And I've opened it up so there's a room in there, and there's also a electrical room which will tie into the gameplay mechanics. Basically, the zombie can sabotage the camera system, and then the guide player will have to re-enable the cameras, or one of the cameras that goes out. We're not sure exactly how we're going to do that yet. This is a diagram of what the environment looked at like originally. You can see these second floors don't connect, and now I added a hallway to connect the second floor, so it's a circuit, and this is the position of the 3 cameras. This isn't quite big enough to be a classroom, although I think we're going to make this basically be like a college campus section. And so I'm probably going to have this be a break room, and one of the ideas I had is maybe the blind player can pick up some leftover food or a soda from the vending machine and then throw it at the zombie to try to distract him for a few seconds. And here's a fly-through of the original corridor, just to give a little bit more detail. So you can see it's a highly polished level. It's ready to go in terms of post-processing and all the other effects that were added on top of it. And all the lighting's done. So I've done a lot of copy pasting with the lighting on the section that I added, which I'll have to fine tune that, but the environment's practically done, with the exception of the break room and the security room has to be done. So this is a walkthrough of the entire level as it stands right now. This is walking into the break room. That's the electrical room. Zombie will go over to that light, which is the placeholder button for now. And up here on the left is where one of the cameras will go. And this is the second floor hallway I've added. Definitely need to work on the lighting a bit on this second floor. It's a little bit too bright. And that elevator, basically the players are working together to try to escape the zombie, and for a set period of time till help can arrive, and hopefully we can have like an animation or like a cutscene or something of like a SWAT team coming through the elevator and rescuing them. So here's the security room. It's pretty bare bones right now, but it's enough to get started. And it's going to be a first-person perspective for both players. The guide player is going to be will have to walk up to the computer in order to actually interact with the cameras and the primary monitors in front of them. And then the bigger monitor on the left has the 3 cameras on it. This is the perspective from the first camera. They'll all be able to rotate, but it's looking at the elevator area. The second one is located in the break room, and the third one is located on the second floor. And I'm considering adding a 4th camera in the electrical room in case the blind player gets stuck in there. That'll have to be dependent on testing. Here's a look at the desk with the camera system in place. You can see the primary monitor and all of the cameras on the secondary monitor. And here's a quick demo of the cameras in action. Aaron added a nice little effect for like a static effect when you cycle between the cameras. And there's a nice like little black line going up and down the cameras to kind of give a little illusion of it being an actual camera. And now Aaron's going to go ahead and talk about how the camera system actually works.
So the camera system is made up of 2 different actors. There's a security camera actor and then the controller actor. The various security camera actors are placed around in the level where you want the security camera point to be. And then each one is registered in the editor with the controller. And each security camera is pretty simple. There's a camera component which has a 2D scene capture component that captures the scene, writes it onto a texture. And then there's a monitor screen component, which is just a plain mesh that has the material drawn on it using that scene captured 2D texture. The controller then, as you switch between cameras, currently moves its world location around to take the position of each of the 4 security cameras. And that wasn't the original design. The original way was going to be to just swap out the texture targets for the material here to generate the larger camera that's in focus. The issue though was we're probably going to have different texture sizes, so for now, as long as there's no performance issues at all, we'll just keep it as that and have 1 extra rendered target. The controller also has an interaction volume here, and once the player enters that interaction volume, there's a mapping context that's added to the player pawn that allows them to control the cameras. So the only way that's possible to control the cameras is when the player is overlapping the the interaction. Each individual camera then has some settings as far as moving it around in world space. There's different yaw and pitch limitations, which is set off of the camera's starting position. There's also the move speed, how fast the camera is actually going to move, and then the interpolation speed up to that move speed, so almost like an acceleration. And there's separate controls for pitch. So when the player enters inside, the interaction volume and the mapping context is added to control the cameras. They can then manipulate the camera that's currently selected by the controller. And as you switch between cameras, you'll see that each camera will be controlled based off and stay within the range that it has preset as far as its yaw and pitch values. This material itself that is driving all of these is pretty simple. It's just being captured by the texture that the 2D scene capture component's writing to. I also put a little overlay color in here, and it's hard to see it in this bright scene, but in the actual map that Russell showed you for the game, you can see a bit more of the green tint to it, which that'll be modified more at runtime. To get the simple static as when you switch cameras from one camera to the other, all that I did for that was in the engine itself, there's some static, noise, higher frequency noise texture, and I take one of those and I just using a planar node and moving one on the U coordinate, one on the Y coordinate of the speeds that are not multiples of each other. So they kind of go off at 90 degree angles and combine those two together, which is only activated when the show static parameter is set by the driver C++ code. And I'll hand it back to Russell to talk about some more of the design aspects.
Yeah, so another aspect with the game is obviously one of the players is blind. We decided we don't want the player to be entirely blind because that could make for a poor gameplay experience. So this is basically what the player will see when they're blind. And this is the same location of the environment. And you can notice, you can make out the really bright light on the wall and the area over here and over here where the lights are illuminating the ground a little bit. And how this effect was achieved is using two different widgets for now. There's a blind overlay, which is just a black box over the entire screen, and it's at 95% opacity, and that's set over here in the alpha channel. And then there's also a background blur that's added, and I tinkered with it a bit and fine-tuned it to a blur strength of 40 for now, and that seems pretty good. So here's the player walking through the level blinded, and you can see you can tell where walls are. You can tell, you see the light sources. I might have to, I'm definitely gonna have to adjust it a bit more. I know this level extremely well because I worked on it for about 33 hours before even starting the game development, and so I can run around the level no problem. Well, you'll see in a minute I bump into a wall for a second, but I'm able to correct myself. And I don't want the players to not have to rely on the guide player. So they have to be blinded enough to where they have to do it with help. But I want them to be able to see enough so that when they walk into a wall, they know they walked into a wall. Because if you're partially or fully blinded in real life, if you walk into a wall, you're going to know it. And, the only way to do that in a game is to actually show the wall, because you can't give that physical feedback. I mean, we could look into vibrating a controller, but if someone's on mouse and keyboard, that doesn't help you. So a couple other things I worked on over the last 3 weeks. Basically, when I did the tutorial, I made the outliner extremely messy with just putting everything everywhere. And so I just put everything into folders that were just logically organized, like lighting and effects, primary lights, secondary lights, etc. And that way it just will help improve my workflow, so it's easier to find stuff. And I also ran into a bug. My stairs, like these stair assets, weren't designed to be walked on with the asset pack that I was using, provided by the tutorial. And so the player was actually getting caught on the stairs, which obviously would be really frustrating if you're trying to run away from a zombie. So I did a pretty simple solution, just making a ramp that's only visible in the editor over all the stairs. And Aaron's told me there's a better way to do it, and this works for now. So if we have time, I might change it to, you can actually adjust the step height for the player. So that might be something worth looking into at some point. But that's basically where we're at right now. We'll be working on it hopefully for the next few months, and then we're going to release it on Steam completely free. And hopefully you can play it. Not available to wish list yet, but if you go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel and this video, then you can follow the development of it and hopefully help more people see the progress on it, so more people can play it. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video, and we'll catch up with you guys next time.